Hello everyone, you're welcome. This is Kingsley from KingspetDesigns. If you're just joining me for the first time, please ensure you subscribe to my channel and don't forget to hit on the notification bell so that you get notified each time I upload new video. If you have been following me lately in my set of tutorials right now, you notice that I actually started teaching you, I started showing you how to work with the Elementor Pro elements. So in this particular tutorial, in the last tutorial, I actually showed you how to, like, these are the Elementor Pro elements I'm actually talking about. When you come to Elementor the Pro, when you come to Pro, you are going to see. In the last one, I actually showed you how to use our nav menu, which is what we have here. What we actually have here, I showed you how to actually make use of our nav menu. So now in this particular one, I'm going to be showing you how to make use of your slider. I'm going to make use of the slides. So I'm going to be showing you how to use your slide effectively on to use and create your website. So without waste of time, let me just go straight into the tutorials. So now I'm going to head over to, I'm going to leave this the way it is. In case you want to actually know how I actually came up with this particular design you are seeing over here, you can actually check in the description box. I'm going to put a link to the video where I actually showed you how to create this, or you can actually check the video by the top right here. You can actually click on that video. It's going to actually take you to this particular tutorials. So for me to do this, what I have today, I'm going to leave this one the way it is. I'm going to add a new section on this side. So I'm going to add a new section. I'm going to add a 1 column. This is it here. So I'm going to bring in my, going to go to my slide. I'm going to bring in my slide onto my workspace. Now this what we have is actually comes with the first 3 slides. It's going to set up 3 slides for you. So now if I should preview just to see how this is how it goes from that here all through to the side. So it is actually left for you. You might decide you want yours to actually go through, like as I would actually want mine also to go through the whole website the way this other to, so that it fills the whole full width of the website. That's how I want my slides to actually go. So now I'm going to click on this particular side. I'm going to click on these 6 dots here. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to stretch this section, stretch the section, then come to where we have content width. I'm going to make it full width. So once I do that, you are going to see that the slide is going to go through and try to make use of all the full width of the website. So now I'm going to start working on my slide now. So I'm going to click on my slides. So I'm going to click on the slides. So click on the slides. Now we have on the side, on this content area, we have the slides. We also have the slide options. So I'm going to go through the slides. Now I'm going to click on the first slide here. Under the first slide, we have background, we have the content, and we also have the styles. So we have the background where you can actually set the background you want. You might decide to use an image for the background. You might decide to use a color for the background, just the way it is here. So now let me say for the first one, I'm going to make use of an image. Let me show you how an image will actually show on that. So let me say I want to make use of an image that is a bit okay. Let me say I want to make use of this particular image for the background, so of this particular one. So I'm going to click on it, the image, and actually insert my image. So once I insert the image, you can see when I check the next slide, this is how my slide is actually going to be. So now I can decide to actually change the content. You can see on content, this is how it just pick the center, which is actually not nice. If I should set it on auto, it's actually going to pick like the full, but I'm going to leave it as cover. It should be on cover, so I want to leave it as cover. Now after this, now the next thing I'm going to do is I can decide to make use of a color like what we have here, but on this one I said I was going to use the first slide. I'm going to make use of image, then maybe on the second slide I'm going to make use of a color, so that I will show you how it works. So now on this one I have it cover as image. Now on this image you can decide to decide you want to turn on the cane burn effect. What does this mean? What does, now if I should click on it, you can see that it's as if the image is actually having some motions on it. It's actually zooming in. You can see it's on zoom in direction, so I can decide to make it zoom out direction. It's going to be zooming out, so once the slide changes it's going to zoom out. So I'm going to make use of this particular, I'm going to be making use of the zoom in for this particular tutorial. I'm going to be making use of zoom in. You can decide to add a background overlay to this particular image. So now I can decide to make use of a background overlay. You can see it has default black color on it. So I'm going to now I can decide to change the colors to make use of. Now let me go back to, I want to go back to this. Now you can see on the slide 1, because of I have a tick, that's why. So if I should make it transparent, you can see the colors actually came out. So that is just how you do that. So I'm going to return it back to a black overlay. I can decide to make use of this. Why I'm actually trying to make use of a darker, of this dark shade now on it, so that my text, any text I put here, I will be able to come out much more brighter. That is why I decide to use this particular. So now I'm going to, now on this I'm going to add this because I want to make use of this. That's why I decided to add that to here. So now you can decide to blend mode. You can decide to, on this, now on this you can decide the blend mode to be either colored. You can see it changes, the blend also changes alongside. So you can decide for it to be color dodge. You can decide for it to be overlay, just overlay. I'm going to leave it as mine. This is overlay. You can see, you can decide to make it screen. So I'm going to just leave it as normal. So I'm going to make use of the normal one. I'm actually okay with it as normal. So that is how, on this particular aspect, this is how, what you can do with this particular slide. So now what I'm actually going to do, because the slides are actually disturbing my work right now, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove these ones so that I can be left with only one slide, so that I can work on this one slide effectively before duplicating it or adding another slide. So let me just work on this one slide so that I don't want it to be scrolling. So now I'm going to head over to, I'm done with actually this the background section, I'm done with it. So I'm going to go over to the content. When you come to the content, you are going to see we have a heading and we also have the main content, like the description. So now if I decide to, I might decide this is my first heading. So I might decide to leave it as this. This is my first heading. So I'm going to leave it like this. So now I'm going to come over this. Let me say this is the description. I can just leave it like this. These are the description. This is my first heading. Now click here. Now let me show you something. When you leave this text here as click here, so this actually, I can decide to add a link, the link where I want this particular, when the person click on this button, where it should take that person to. So if someone should click on this button, where should the person, can easily add the link to, in this particular area, can add the link here. So but if I actually don't want it to link to anywhere, what I just need to do is to remove any text on this. I'm going to just leave it empty. Once I leave it empty, it's going to go off and it won't link, that button was not going to be there. But if I should immediately I add anything there, it's going to actually bring out the button for me. So in case you don't need the button, you can actually just remove the text there. The button is going to go off. So now coming to where we have our styles, you can actually style this. You can leave it as custom the way it is this way. What if you want to style it? You can actually come over to here. This particular style is actually different from this style. So now I can come over to this place. I might decide to, I want the horizontal position, I want my slide, the text to be from this side, and I want it to be from this side, and I want it to be from the center, and I actually want it to be from the bottom side or from the top side. So it actually depends, but now I will actually want mine to be at the center, but all of them should be at the center. Then I might also want my text to be aligned to the left, then my or to the right, but I'm going to leave mine still at the center. So now under the text color, I can decide to add a text color to this. I can decide to make the text a different color, maybe something like yellowish. Might decide to make it like this. It's actually to my taste, but I'm going to leave it as white. I'm going to make it, I think the white is actually cool there, or can make use. I think white is actually cool on this particular place. So now I can decide to either give it a shadow. I want the text to actually have a shadow. I can click on the shadow. It's going to activate the shadow. I can change, if I change the color of the shadow, you can see it's actually showing, but you are seeing as if it's not showing because it's actually on a dark background. That's why it is not, it seems as if it's not showing, but actually the shadow is actually showing. So now you can set the how blur the shadow should be, the position, the horizontal, the vertical. You can actually do that yourself. So I'm not going to, I don't want it to actually have a shadow. I'm going to remove the shadow from it. I'm going to reset it. There's no shadow. I want mine to be like this. So now this is for this particular side. This is okay for my slides. So now let's now come to where I have my, so if I'm done with this particular one now, I have this my one slide. I may decide to actually add another slide. Now if I'm adding another slide now, it's actually going to give me a new slide. Now I can decide to either make use of a background. As I said, you can decide to make use, let the second one, let it be a background color. You can set it to have a background color. You can decide to make use of an image, but to make this work faster for me, I'm going to actually leave it as an image. So I'm going to just duplicate what we have here. I'm going to click on this icon. It's going to duplicate what I have here for me. Then what I'll just do is to change the image so that you are going to see that is, so that it won't look as if I'm actually using the same slide. So I'm going to, on the content, I'm going to go in here and change. This is my second heading. This is my second heading. So this is my second heading. Can change your style, change other things, but I'm going to, I think that's it for this one. Then I can still do it again and add the third slide. So I can make this is now, I'm going to pick this. Okay, let me pick this. So picking this, I'm going to now come to my content and say this is my third heading. So I can decide to add as many as I want to. So but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to stop in this just 3 slides. So we have 3 slides now ready. My 3 slides are actually ready. We have 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So what I'm now going to do now, you can see we have height. Now the height has to do with the height of the slide. So the more I increase the height, the more it's going to consume more space. So I'm going to actually, I think I'm going to make my 500 and see, or 550. Let me make my 550. So you can see this is how my slide is actually. So this is how, if you now click on this, it's actually going to bring you to the next one. Click on this, it's actually going to bring you to the next one, and this, you can see the Ken bond effect we added is actually appearing, actually displaying here. It's actually animating. So that is that for this particular side. So now I can now come over to where I have my slider option. In this slider option, I'm going to now set if I want this dot. Like now I have a dot, some dots here. I have some dots here. Now I can decide the dots it to be have arrow, we have dots. I can decide to, that's the navigation, I can decide to make it only dots. So the arrow actually goes off, it's only remaining dots. I can decide to make it just arrows. I can decide to make it, I'm going to, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to leave it as dots and arrow, or let me just make it dots. I'm going to make it just dots, so I can navigate by clicking on the dots instead of the arrow. So I'm going to just, for my own sake, I'm going to, for this tutorial, I'm going to make use of dots. So now when I come to, we now have on the autoplay, you can set it to autoplay, you can set it not to autoplay. So on my own tutorial, on this particular I'm going to make it autoplay. So now when you hover over it, do you want it to stop sliding? Do you want the slideshow to stop? So I'm going to leave it as yes. When you hover over it, perhaps the person wants to actually read what is on that particular place, so the slideshow is going to stop. So now, if you want pause on interaction, all this you can just set it. The speed now, I'm going to leave it as default in case you want to. One thing you should notice, the lesser this number, the lesser is going to, the faster the slide is going to change. Like for example, if I should make this, let me say 500. Let me say I make this 500. Now this slide is going to change very fast. You can see if I should make that 500, it's actually going to be changing very fast. You can see it's changing very fast. So now, but if I should return, I'm going to leave it as the default 5000. So I'm going to now come infinite loop. Yeah, you continue looping, it should stop. It should continue looping. I can decide to change it from, so once it plays it will just stop. So but I'm going to leave it as infinite loop. So I'm going to, on the slide transition, do I want it to fade or do I want it to just like, you can see on this now, if I should select fade, when it's actually sliding, it's going to actually change to a different, it will just fade out and change to a different slide. So but for my own, I prefer the slide, it should just slide and change to the next slide. So after that, you can actually adjust the speed of the slide transition, the speed, you can actually set that up. You can also on the content, you can decide to make it out to, for the content to go up. That's when it's changed, the slide is actually changing. If it should actually, if the content, like let me bring out my arrows so that I'll be able to change. So now you can see when I change, the content are actually coming from the top, so I can decide the content to come from the down. So now if I should do that, now if I should next, you can see the content is actually coming from the, so actually I want my content to come as default from the top. So you can just play around with all these things the way you want it to be. So now we'll now move over to where we have our slides, our styles. Come to the styles. So I'm now going to, on the slide styles, so I can decide to make use of now the slide width. How do I want the slide width to actually be? Actually the width is actually, I think the width is, I'm okay with the width the way it is, so I'm going to leave it as the default setting for the width. So I'm going to now, on the padding, I might decide to add some padding to this slide, so I can decide to add some padding. Let me say, but now right now I'm going to, because of I don't actually have, I wish my text are actually longer, so that's where this, you are going to actually see this padding. You can actually set your padding if you want, but I'm going to leave it now the way it is. Now on this side, on the horizontal position, I can decide to set my horizontal position how I want it. I've done all the whole styles already from the other side, so actually all this ones doesn't really take much effort. So now I'm going to now come to where I have my title. This is where I'm going to now do my slides very well. So now the spacing in between my title and, you can see the spacing in between my title and my text, that is what we refer to as this. So now I think this is actually, all the slides are still disturbing me because what I'm going to do, I'm still going to go back to this and just remove this. I can add that later on. So I'm going to come over here. So now I'm going to just work on this. So now I'm going to now come over to my title. So the spacing here has to do with the spacing in between my header, my heading and my text. So I'm going to just leave it as 15. Title color, I can decide to give the title a different, actually added a color here, but the one I actually added in this other side, in the content slide side, you can see from this content, if you want to add it here, the styles are added here actually overrides this particular one I'm having here. You can see I actually made this white. How I wish I didn't add any style here. This is going to, like now if I should remove the style, you can see this other style is actually taking effect. So in case you don't want, you want to just make use of this style here, so that is why when I actually came to this side, I tried working on this place, it wasn't actually, it was as if it wasn't showing. That was because of I already did that in this particular content area styling. So now when I now come out, if I should come to this, I remember I was in my title, the font size, that was what I was working on. So I can just make, let me say 20, or let me make it a bit bigger, let me say 28. I think 28 should be okay. Then I can decide to change the font to whatever font type I want. So I'll just leave mine as Taoma, and I'm going to now come to all this place. I can decide to change the weight of my text, whether I want it bold, whether I want it lighter. Can just, it's just depending on your, I'm going to just leave it as the default. So you can change the line height, you can actually change the style, whether you want them all uppercase or I'm going to just leave it as the default. So you can change the spacing in between the lettering, but I'm going to leave it also as default. So we can just play around with all these things. So now I'm going to come to my description. My description too, I can also set the color of my descriptions. Already I did that. Is not going to take effect here because I already did that in this particular site. So I'm going to leave this the way it is. Now I can decide to add spacing in between my button and my description. So I'm going to still leave it as default as it is 15. Or let me add, I think 20 should be okay for this. Now can also work on the text size. So can decide to make let me make it 20, 18, or let me make 20. Let me make this 20. Now can also still work on my styles here, my text. Can just set all these things yourself, just as you did for the heading. So I'm now going to go to on the button. You can actually set the button how you want it to look like, the text color of the button. Remember I did that in the other side, that's why it's not showing here. You can set the size of the button, whether you want it extra small, extra large. You can actually set how you want this to be, but I'm going to leave mine as medium. So now you can actually set, do you want a border width, do you want the text size inside? Maybe I want the text size inside to be 20. I can just set that. Do you want the style of the text? Do you want it, I'm going to leave it as Taoma. Do you want to make to, okay, I want all the click me should be all in capital letter. So you can just make it the way you want it. I'm going to return it back to the default. So just style this in all the way you want it to be. So on this now we are having border width. So the border width has to do the thickness of the line of the border around it. So I'm going to just leave it as 2. So I'm going to make mine to be 2. On the border radius, that's how this radius now, what you can see, if I increase, if I should increase the border radius, the more I increase it, the more it looks much more roundish. So I'm going to just leave it as 5. The border radius, I'm going to leave it as 5. Now I'm going to now come to when you hover, you can see when you're on this now, it's just normal. We have normal background color. Now let me set on the hover. When you hover over this now, what should the background look like? When you hover, you can see this is how the color is when I hover over it, because I set it to be this. So I can decide to make it blue. When I hover over it, it changes to blue. I can make use of this dark blue. Then I can set the color, text color. When I hover over it, you can decide to make it yellow, a bit yellowish. Now right now I'm actually having dots. Like if there is arrow on here, you can actually use your arrow, can set how the arrow color should look like. Like I think I'm going to make, for the sake of this tutorial, I'm going to just leave it as the default white, or so that you see how it looks like. I'm going to make it red. Then the arrows dot, I have to add slides so that you are going to see it how it looks. Then for the sake of this tutorial, so that you'll be able to see what I'm doing, let me make this the dots to be yellowish in color. So now let me duplicate this slide. Now if I should add more slides to this and add another slide to this, so now if I should update this particular page, now let's update this page and see. I'm going to see that my slides are actually going to start taking effect. If you're still watching this video and you've not yet considered subscribing to my channel, please hit on the subscribe button and click on the notification bell so that you get notified each time I upload new video. Okay, as you can see, I just refreshed the website so that this will come out. It wasn't actually coming out, so I just had to save it and refresh the website. So you can see on my slides now, you can now see that I set this color to be, the arrows to be red color and this to be yellowish. You can see them appearing here. So I can actually still go back there and set my navigation, my arrow, my dots. I want it to be white color, and I can actually increase the dot size the size of the dots, you can see it's actually increasing in terms of size. You can still make it bigger than that. You can see it's actually growing bigger. So I'm going to leave it as, let me make it this size 6. I think is okay. Then now on the arrow, I'm going to also change it, the arrow color. I'm going to make it white color, so I can still work on the size of the arrow, but I'm going to leave it as the default size. I think the default size was still okay for me. So now I'm going to, on the button now, I'm going to, I don't want this red here, so I'm going to just leave it. Let me remove the background color. Let me leave it as white like this. So when you over it, it changes. So now that is just what we have here. So now on the style, you can, there's no much difference in the style here actually. On like on the animation here, there's no, because all the animation you need to be there is actually on this, so there's no much difference in this particular styles here you want to do. So now I can ask on this side, everything here is okay the way I want it. So you can just go through it and set how you want your mobile version to actually look like. You can see when I switch to my mobile version, my tablet version, you can see how it actually looks like. I can decide to, on this one, I can decide to increase. You can see when I come to over to here on the mobile version, I can increase, set the height how I want the height of this to actually look like on tablet. You can set that differently, so you can actually play along with all these things yourself. Just do follow along. All this, anyone you see with these icons here, those particular ones are actually responsive. Like now these ones are not responsive because they are, you don't see, they are not having these responsive icons. So on this now, these ones actually, they are still also not responsive. So you can just note the ones that are actually responsive. You can, those ones are the ones you can only change, but the other ones that are not responsive, you can't change them. So you can also do that for that mobile view. So you can set how you want the slide, the height of the slide, how you want it to look, actually look like. You can actually do that yourself. So this is where I'm actually going to be stopping in this particular tutorial. I believe you've learned a lot from this video. If you have any question or you have any difficulty anywhere, you can actually drop in the comment box below. I'm going to try my best to see how to answer. Until next time, bye for now.
Just wanna